All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started if that's good with everyone. And we can go ahead and go around and do call to order and introductions for everyone, just so we get everyone's name on the record. So would you like to start?
Kelly Fearon with City of Tampa.
Faye Miller, at large and with Green Artery.
Wade Reynolds, TPO staff.
And Horst, citizen at large, effector.
Peter Davitt, City of Temple Terrace.
Trina Corcoran, Planning Commission rep.
Okay. And then is there anyone online that would like to also?
You have several people online, Chair. Would you like me to go down the list?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Allison?
Hi, this is Allie Wen, Florida Department of Health for Hillsborough County.
I do not believe he's a member, but we also have Emmett Duran from FDOT.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Jason Jackman.
Here.
And John Marsh is on the line.
John Marsh, City of Tampa.
Robin.
Robin Baker, City of Plant City.
Savannah.
Savannah Vidal, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
Victoria.
Victoria's here.
We have Wanda. Wanda, did you want to unmute?
Yeah, sorry, my dog was barking. Wanda Vincent, citizen at large.
We have Dave Aylesworth. David, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me? Yeah, no, I wasn't able to, but now I am. Yes, David Aylesworth, a member at large.
We have John Kubicki. John, are you able to unmute?
Yes, this is John Kubicki, member at large.
And let me see if there's anybody else. Linda Crestantini. Linda, are you able to unmute?
Hold on. Yes, this is Linda Crescentini with Hart.
And that's your representation online.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sally Thompson.
Sally's walking in the room right now. Sally.
Sally Thompson.
Okay.
We do not have an in-person quorum tonight, therefore we do not need to have a vote for remote participation. And thank you very much for your time, Chair.
All right, thank you. We can then jump down to.
She said we don't have a quorum?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, we will have to move past the minutes.
Right. So item number 3 is public comment. Doesn't look like we have anyone in the house right now, but is there anyone online?
I'm sorry, excuse me, Chair and Wade. Are there any notes to be made for last month's minutes to be passed next month?
You mean corrections?
Correct.
Further down on the agenda, item number 5. So
I'm sorry.
Good. All good. All right, so public comment.
We have not received any public comment.
Okay, great. Cover that. Next item, item number 4, members' interests.
Is this where I would say something? When Sally Thompson, Wade and I were at a 2022 Florida Trails Summit can you hear me? I don't know whether I'm supposed to speak in something or whatever. And Wade, you can pop in if you want to. Last week in DeBarry, which was sponsored by the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation and FDOT. Most of the discussion was dealing with the coast-to-coast connector and the St. Johns River to the sea loop. And they're getting the bulk of the Sun Trail money. We are not getting Sun Trail money, except bits and pieces, I guess, here in the Southwest. So you say, what was the point? Well, actually, there was a lot of networking, and one of the things that Wade and I discovered that was pretty cool is that the Trust for Public Land has now hired a coordinator from Sarasota, who was a former county commissioner in Sarasota, and he is working on, as part of the Closing the Gaps, which was something that was put together by the Greenways and Trails Foundation. One of the gaps is the Gulf Coast Regional Connector, and we're not a priority because the other two got priorities and were farther along. However, with what's going on now with Hillsborough County, with BPAC, with all that, and with other counties, we're in a position where we can do something. And this individual, who's a former county commissioner in Sarasota, has been hired by the Trust for Public Land to try to get the different counties working together. So it was a real opportunity. He's only been on board 4 weeks. It was a real opportunity to meet him and connect with a couple of different FDOTs, because it's this district and also is a District 1. So we talked about getting together. I have a copy of that, which you could distribute if you want to. I have a copy of what the Gulf Coast Regional Connector is. I'll give this to you, Wade. You can hand this right. It's on the Greenways and Trails website, but it's, you know, a lot of work has gone on with Pinellas Trail, but Hillsborough County sort of been catching up. And so I'm very hopeful that we will be able to maybe get some funding and get some interest along those lines. Let me see. So then the other thing that was interesting was, as you may be aware, there's federal dollars coming. And even though we may not be able to get SunTrail for a while, we may be able to get federal dollars if we can all be working together. So it's a combination of trails and greenways. And so it was some pretty good networking. You want to add?
Yeah, sure. The only couple of things I might add to that, the Gulf Coast Trail, as you all may know, includes the Courtney Campbell Causeway, the connection across the city of Tampa, then works its way down the South Coast Greenway from Maydale Bridge all the way to the Manatee County line. It also includes in Sarasota, Manatee County, the Legacy Trail, which they've just done a big extension of. So, and it covers both District 1 and we'll go down to Charlotte's, Collier, and Lee County as well, in the south of Sarasota, Manatee. But having the two different FDOT districts, I think having the Trust for Public Land as a player in that might help coordinate it. And the Trust for Public Land has actually given money for a section of the, it's either the Summit Greenway or the Riverwalk several years ago.
Well, it's actually both of them are on their website.
Okay, then it's both, which is great. But hopefully they can do some things to help our trail along as well, and help get that regional connection established. So yeah, that was one really positive thing, and understanding more about those federal funding sources as well.
And another thing too, and I don't know if Chris Fellerhoff is here via, okay. I chair the County Greenways Committee, and the county is now hiring a consultant to help put the, well, this thing was we started in the mid-90s, and then we didn't do anything very much for a while. Chris has been really working on trying to get everybody together and, you know, bylaws and all those board things, but then also, you know, updating our plan. And a consultant, in fact, we've got a meeting in a couple of weeks, a virtual meeting to meet the consultant and start talking about how we can all get this going.
Did Chris say who that consultant is?
He won't tell me.
Okay.
He says he knows who the person is. He might have said, but I didn't know. But anyway, I'll find out in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
But it's a she, I believe, and I'm gonna mention this whole Gulf Coast thing, because even though Hillsborough County is our interest, we want to be linking to, and that probably can help us with getting more money, federal dollars or whatever, and interest. So that's my story.
All right, thank you, Sally. Anyone else? Any items or anything like that?
I see Wanda is raising her hand.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So I sent in a flyer, Wade, I think you have a copy of it, for a survey that the Downtown River Arts Network has put out to try and make downtown a little more walkable and livable. We're trying to attract businesses. So if you could share that with your social networks, people who work or live or visit downtown, that would be great. The more feedback we have, obviously, the better informed we can be in attracting new businesses and trying to make it a pleasant place to be. So I'd appreciate that. That's the first piece. The second piece is I have questions from some of my neighbors regarding pedicabs as a source of transportation in downtown Tampa. Some of my neighbors were upset, saying they heard they were coming. Some of them were excited. So I don't know if that's a true thing or if we know anything about that as a transportation option, but I just wanted to be able to put it out there and relay some information to my neighbors if I can.
What's the handout?
This Franklin Street survey.
Oh,
Yes.
so it's just Franklin Street. It's not the other side of the river.
No, not yet. Right now, we're just working on attracting businesses to that. Herman Massey Park's getting their whole facelift, and we'd like to have some businesses come in onto Franklin Street that are not nightclubs, frankly.
Okay, thank you, Wanda. I'll be sure to share that.
And Wanda, regarding pedal cabs, I'm not familiar with anything. I do know that the city is working on a micromobility contract that will cover all of those modes. It is currently maybe being challenged, so it's going to be longer before we can have that come before the committee. But I'm hoping within the next couple of months to bring that back to you, although it may be longer, depending on how that challenge goes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Anything? The floor is open. Anyone online? Have a hand up? If not, then we can go ahead and move on. Item number 5 is the approval of minutes, but since we don't have a quorum, we will just postpone that. For
Yes, I have a couple of comments.
Oh, yes.
On March 23rd, I had an excused absence. I'm not listed.
We will mark that as excused for you.
Okay, and on page 2, under status reports, FDOT, Howard Franklin is Frankland.
Good catch.
I'm sure there are others. I just,
People are always making that mistake.
I know. That's it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we can move on to our action items, which we won't take a vote on as of now. The first one is the public participation plan measures of effectiveness report by Davida Franklin, TPO staff.
And I apologize, I'm not seeing the Vita on here. But I know Elizabeth was driving past, so we may have to skip the Vitas for now. But we had moved Elizabeth to later, but it looks like she has made it home,
Perfect.
which is the apportionment.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can move on to the TPO apportionment plan. Elizabeth, you have the floor.
Awesome, thank you. Could someone enable me to share my screen?
It's just one sec.
Thanks, Wade. Perfect. Okay. Can you see the slides and hear me okay?
We sure can.
Excellent. So good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Watkins. I'm with the TPO staff, and I'm here today to present some information on the TPO membership apportionment plan. Just a little bit of background before we dive into that membership apportionment scenario. A membership apportionment plan, what is it? Well, essentially what it is a document that outlines that geographic planning area for the MPO, as well as identifies the voting membership. So all of the board members and their votes essentially is what is in that plan. And it's required through federal law, which says that any area, urbanized area over 50,000 must be designated through a process and have an MPO to represent that urban area. Additionally, state statute requires that that membership apportionment, that voting structure of the board, be reviewed every 10 years after the decennial census. So we've done this, I think, for the past 30, 40 years. And the last time that we did this was, about 10 years ago in 2013. So there were a few considerations that went into the voting membership apportionment. The first of which was the importance of coordination and responsibility to comply with government in the sunshine. So there are many instances when elected officials need to meet with agencies, transportation operators to talk about transportation investments or policies. And technically, because those agencies and those elected officials serve on the same board, if they were to discuss that topic, it would need to be properly noticed and conducted in a manner consistent with Florida government in the sunshine. And it was for that reason, about a decade ago, Florida statute was updated to require that the Florida Department of Transportation serve as a non-voting technical advisor on MPO boards across the state. The second consideration into this scenario was accountability to residents. Since the current MPO board makeup includes elected officials as well as agency representatives that are either appointed or staff, there could be a perception that those ones that are not elected officials could be less accountable to residents. So we took a little bit deeper dive into that and did an analysis of all of the larger MPOs in Florida, and that's also in your packet, to analyze what transportation agencies serve on MPO boards, but also the percentage of elected officials that make up the voting block for an MPO. And we found that Hillsborough County was actually a bit of an outlier. Only 63% of the TPO board's votes come from elected officials. The majority of those larger MPOs have at least 90% makeup of elected officials on their boards to vote on those transportation investments, federally funded transportation investments and plans. And then the last consideration was population growth. We have the numbers from the 2020 census, and a lot of the growth is occurring in the unincorporated county. About 70% of the entire population in Hillsborough County resides in unincorporated county, about 25% in the city of Tampa, and 2 to 3% in both Plant City and Temple Terrace. So a couple of months ago, we took that information and proposed 3 membership scenarios to the TPO Policy Committee. The first scenario was retaining voting membership from any agencies that have appointed officials, and then of course, retaining voting membership for electeds. The second scenario was just elected officials. So elected officials from, of course, the 4 jurisdictions, as well as the school board. And that third scenario was only elected officials from jurisdictional governments. The policy committee voted 5-1 to support that second scenario, which essentially says that elected officials would be voting members of the board. So that would include those 4 jurisdictions and the school board. And those appointed officials and staff from agencies would then be, their status on the board would be changed to a non-voting technical advisor, similar to Florida Department of Transportation. And of course, that's still a very important role because they would still be at the TPO board table, providing insight to elected officials right as they're making decisions. So very important. And then the last thing I want to touch in before showing the scenario is just to show how the proposed votes align with the 2020 population. So I mentioned earlier, unincorporated Hillsborough County has a lion's share of the population, but if their votes were increased to 7%, it still would not be proportional, but the thought is there are 7 BOCC members, so they could represent them well on the TPO board. And then the votes for City of Tampa and Plant City and Temple Terrace will remain the same, with 3 votes for Tampa and 1 for each Plant City and Temple Terrace. So I'll take a breath here in a minute, but let me orient you to this table. So of course, on the far right, the status quo votes shows the current membership, voting membership of the TPO board. And the highlighted column shows that proposed scenario 2. Again, the big 2 changes here are the appointed officials or the staff positions would serve in a non-voting technical role. And then the second significant change is that increase for Hillsborough County from 5 votes to 7. So I will take a pause there and see if there's any feedback or comments. I know there isn't a quorum, but we would still love your input because we will take that back to the TPO board in May for their consideration on this scenario and that apportionment plan.
This is Victoria Klug. I have a question. Was there a problem with the voting scenario prior? I mean, why was it being considered? I mean, why can't we be an outlier?
No, we absolutely can. That is definitely still an option for the board to not change that voting membership. It's just state law requires that it be evaluated every 10 years. And the input from the policy committee was, you know, like I mentioned earlier, concerns about coordination with government, the sunshine law, accountability elected officials, those sorts of considerations we're taking into this proposal. But it is absolutely at the board's discretion if they want to leave it as is. That's absolutely okay.
Okay.
This is Sally Thompson. I think the one question I might have is, even though Hillsborough County has more population, is how much of the transportation issues are focused? I don't know how to ask this question, but I think of an urban area, although there are parts of Tampa which are not in the incorporated part, but would that put the city of Tampa at a disadvantage because of the responsibilities it has as an urban center?
I'm happy to try and take that one.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
I don't know if it puts it at a disadvantage, but under this proposal, the city of Tampa's voting share would go down as a percentage of the total votes. But that is the result largely of increased population growth in unincorporated Hillsborough County, rather than something else.
And the other thing too is a lot of the sprawl is the unincorporated Tampa that's actually part, because people think it's part of Tampa. So I don't know how, I don't even know how you would figure, you know, I don't know.
So could you go back a slide where it shows the percentage of the population compared to the percentage of vote? Could you maybe explain that a little more as far as those percentages and who maybe has an outsized role and who has less voting power in comparison to population?
Yeah. So essentially the intent behind showing the information this way was just to show how, if this scenario would be fulfilled, how that percentage of votes aligns with the population from that decennial census. And because our MPO planning area is the entire county, we have to take in consideration population that is proportional to that entire planning area. So what this is essentially showing, the unincorporated Hillsborough County has, so with 7 votes, that total would be about 54%, but that's still less than the entire population for our MPO planning area, which is the county. The city of Tampa's would be 23%, even though their current population or their 2020 population would be 26%. But that's less of a gap than the unincorporated Hillsborough County. And I've been taking notes about someone's comment about the city of Tampa and that urbanized role. And Councilman Citro at the earlier meeting at the Livable Roadways has made that point So that we're going to take all that feedback and present it to the board for their consideration in May.
Okay, thank you. So looks like Plant City and Temple Terrace are the ones that are coming out ahead. But I mean, my personal opinion is that I like the change to kind of keep the power of the MPO board in the hands of the elected officials and in the hands of people through the elected officials, as opposed to having all the voting power being at all those different agencies like it was before. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good thing to kind of stop and pause and ask, why did we do it that way?
Because we always did.
Right, yeah.
No, I agree with you on that. I just.
It might have been done that way because Hart is involved with transportation, planning is involved with transportation. I mean, those are agencies that are intimately involved with transportation information, changes. I mean, I could see why they're involved.
But they're still now as advisors, so they would be involved, right?
Yeah, but you can advise all you want, but if,
Yes. Please give your name when you speak for minutes purposes.
oh, I'm sorry, that was Victoria Klug. Sorry.
And how often is this plan revisited?
So it's required to be revisited every 10 years, but essentially if the board wanted to do it in 2 years and update it, they could. It's just required by state statute to do it, to evaluate it every 10 years.
And is there any consideration given to projected growth, like with all the, new housing going in? Is there any consideration, or is it strictly based on the 2020 census?
For population, strictly on the 2020 census, because that's what's in the federal law and state statute.
So doing this would just kind of make us consistent with the rest of the state in terms of the makeup of their boards.
Yeah, and if you want to, or I have it pulled up here. This is also in your packet. Again, just that quick analysis of those other MPOs that serve, areas over 200,000. This is just their breakdown of their representation. If it says not seated, it means that there is a port, like for example, for Florida, Alabama TPO, not seated means there is a port authority, but they're not seated. They do not have voting membership on the TPO board. And the NA means it's not applicable. They do not have that position. Someone made a good comment about Hart and public transportation, and that we saw that as a key theme across all the boards, but in many situations, there's overlap between the BOCC and MPO board representation, or on the other aspect, the transit agency is run through the county. But there is, so this proposal would still be consistent with having Hart's interest represented on the board, because I think there's at least 3 Hillsborough County commissioners that serve on both the TPO board as well as the Hart's board.
Okay. So, this is Victoria Klug again. I have a quick question. Did the number of votes grow because the population grew from status quo to proposed? Because I believe there was 5 proposed technical advisors, and so you should have 11 people voting, not 13 votes, like how Hillsborough County went up by 2. Who were those votes? Where did they come from?
So
you have 16, you're removing 5. Why isn't it 11? Why is it 13?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not following. It's been kind of a long day. So the 13 is just from those 4 jurisdictions as well as the school board.
Right. So if you look on the other column, status quo votes, you have 16 at the bottom, the total. You're removing 5, right? 6 and 16 minus 5 is 11. How did Hillsborough County gain 2?
Yes, gain 2 to be proportioned with the population from the 2020 census.
So it grew.
Yes, yes, yeah. So that was the second change that flagged. That went from 5 to 7, while the remaining votes for the other municipalities and the school boards would stay the same.
So if it gets bigger, even bigger, unincorporated Hillsborough County gets even bigger, they could have 10 votes. City of Tampa has 3. It's not a set number of votes divided proportionally.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it doesn't need to be a set number of votes. There's flexibility in the state statute. It has to be more than 5 and less than 25. And the 7 honestly is maxed out. There's 7 county commissioners. If it was the will of the board in the future to increase even further, I think they would probably have to look at weighted voting or something like that.
Okay. All right. I just, looking at the math, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so each county commissioner would get a vote, and that's what's represented there by Hillsborough County?
Yes.
Okay.
So that means the city of Tampa does get votes because some of them are in the city.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Because there's some county commissioners that are
Like Harry
countywide.
Cohen in the city.
His district covers the city as well as other parts of the unincorporated county, right? Yes.
Okay. So Sally Thompson, these are all elected officials that are in these.
In the left column.
Yes, okay.
Above, the proposed votes column would be all elected officials.
Okay. So that's every county commissioner, so they don't have to have an argument over who gets to be on the, they're all on it.
Yeah, that's nice. Seems like improvement. And then Tampa would.
Tampa gets. Yeah, no, that's that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we're not able to pass a motion, of course, but it sounds like, are we all in favor? Just comment on it. Is there any dissent? Is there any, like, someone who's like, this is a bad idea?
This is Victoria Klug. I mean, I don't see why input from agencies that actually perform transportation services, I think their input as a voting member is important. So I'm saying that I'm not in favor of it.
Is there anyone else? Just to kind of let Elizabeth have a general sense of where we're at.
This is John Marsh. Well, I don't have guidance from the city on this so far, but in my personal opinion, I think, I don't know if it's such a great idea.
Could you speak up, John?
I don't know if you can hear me. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, I'm not so convinced it's such a great idea. I think that the other agencies, while they are technical in nature, tend to have a more balanced view than some of the county commission. So, yeah, I still need to be convinced that this is a good idea. This is progress.
This is Katrina Corcoran. I just wanted to mention that generally I've been told to abstain for any kind of, we're not voting, but the Planning Commission hasn't heard about this item yet. So as Planning Commission staff, staying with it.
Okay.
Ditto for City of Tampa.
Yeah. All right, anybody else online? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
We do have to be home a lot, so we may be able to follow up with that. Davida, are you able to hear us? We can't hear you. Sometimes,
all right.
There we go.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, I heard you say, let me just, but I didn't hear the rest.
Would you like me to make you the presenter, or shall I pull up your presentation on my screen?
I can go ahead and present.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Okay. All right, how's that? Can everyone see this?
We can.
Okay. All right, so this is your public participation plans measures of effectiveness report that I'm presenting to you, and it's for 2 years. It's a public engagement evaluation for the years 2020 and 2021. So why are we focusing on public participation? Well, for one thing, it provides opportunities for involvement, and it assures inclusivity of our constituencies. It requires for us to be responsive, creative, and flexible, as well as maximizes our exposure when it comes to the public and them being aware and giving their input. And so we do this report to evaluate our public engagement and to recommend improvements to our process, as well as demonstrating to the public that we really do care about what they think and making sure that they have a voice. So this report looks at visibility and productivity, participation opportunities, public interest and feedback, as well as input results. And I'm going to go through some of these areas of the report and to give you some examples as well. So for visibility and productivity, we have some samples here of some ways that we've been visible. So if you look at the amounts here for the newsletters and for the brochures and for the news articles, these are actually the cumulative amounts of what we've produced since we began tracking all of these documents, as well as if you see the YouTube views there, 2,882, that's from the establishment from the time that our YouTube account was established. So we've been tracking this stuff ongoing to make sure that we're increasing our visibility with the public. And here are 2 great examples of ways that we've been visible and productive. So on the left side here, you have our executive director, Beth Alden, and this is the example of our virtual presence that we had during the COVID pandemic restrictions. And so we did a really good job of meeting the needs of the public and meeting the demands that came along with folks having to work from home or having to engage with us from home. So we were able to adopt a platform for virtual meetings, and then we made it into a hybrid environment, which is what we're operating under right now. And so if you look to the right, you also see a photo from the outreach of our non-discrimination and equity plan update. And that was a situation where we were very visible because we went door to door canvassing folks to get their opinions on what they thought about how we should respond in terms of some of the historic discrimination that they may have endured or witnessed or may have known about. And we went to the different environmental justice areas to make sure that we gave them a voice. And we also sent out flyers. We engaged churches, other community groups and centers. It was a very great effort at making sure that we reached those voices that historically had not been involved in the planning process. So for participation opportunities, this grid right here has all of the wonderful committee meetings that we offer to the public, as well as the board meetings and all the folks that attended, as well as the number of folks who made public comments at these meetings. But if we take those numbers out and actually sum them up, you'll see that we have a little bit over 3,900 of participants who participated in our board and committee meetings, as well as 56 speakers. And again, this is from 2020 to 2021, as well as 940 folks who received our email agenda packets. And then for the events that the TPO participated in or hosted, we actually participated in, 20% of those events were participated in environmental justice areas, which is pretty good. So we're making sure that we're going again out to these areas. For public interest and feedback, so you have 4 examples of ways that we created documents or projects or studies where we were seeking input from the public, and that we also got some of their feedback and documented it. So if you, again, the non-discrimination equity plan, we went out door to door, flyers, focus groups, a storytelling forum. We were again out there and we got all that input and made recommendations based on that input. For the Sheldon Road corridor technical study, we actually focused on the high injury network, and we got feedback on 8 corridors of concern. And then for the annual evaluation of the community transportation coordinator, We received about 1,300 survey responses over the 2 years for an evaluation each year. And then the transportation improvement plan, we had dozens of folks that responded in 2020 and 21 at the meetings. Of course, it could be virtual. In the case of 2020 and 21, it was virtual, and also by email and social media posts and also voice messages. So we were able to, again, just garner a lot of feedback from just these 4 of the many projects that we had focused on in the last 2 years. Now, regarding public input, these are 2 great examples that can show you just how we use the input when it comes to recommendations in our studies. So on the left, you have the Plant City Circulator map. That's an alternative map from the Plant City Transit Feasibility Study. And most of the folks that were surveyed for that study said that they preferred that map. So then what we did is we made a recommendation that Hart and Plant City should do another analysis to research the feasibility of having a circulator on that route and also to explore funding options. And then on the right side, you have the Safe Access to Parks pilot study. And for that study, a lot of folks, they came out in support of giving feedback for 3 different parks, Copeland Park, Sulphur Springs Park, and also the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. And what we found from there, which is what we recommended, is that some folks would like to see wider bike paths. They would like to see more safety paint where the bike path either meets a sidewalk or meets a street. So that way it delineates the difference, as well as some other safety improvements. So again, that's an example. These are examples of how we use public input to make recommendations in our studies. And here we have 4 examples of successes that we did deliver to the community. So for the kids there that you see in the upper left-hand corner, and you see Lisa Silva in the background, that's our Flip Junior Ambassadors program. We went out to an environmental justice area, actually 3, so Palm River, Town and Country, and also Tampa Heights, and this was in partnership with the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association. And they're actually in this photo working on a beautification project, which allows for them to start to understand how important it is to have safe spaces in their community and a walkable community. And also, we also had some other information that we shared with them, and they were able to brainstorm about transportation options. And then on the right side there, you have the a photo from the Morning of Remembrance. And so this was a walk that we have every year where we remember and honor folks who unfortunately have fallen victim to traffic violence. And so that photo there was from Bruce B. Downs, and we had about 50 people or so who came out in support of that initiative. On the bottom there on the left, we had the Garden Steps program, and that's a fun but very, very, very beneficial program because it teaches folks in the East Tampa community and also who are associated with the Community Gardens Coalition in Tampa that it's very important to learn how to grow your own food. And then the Gulf Coast Safe Streets Hybrid Summit, that was something that we participated in as well. We hosted some bike rides for that summit, and that is a product of the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance. So when it comes to input results, we do look at the recommendations that were previously made in the report prior, and then we also make recommendations for this year. So here you have the 2020 report recommendations, which were to increase citizen engagement in environmental justice areas and to use short videos to inform, to have flexibility in public plan requirements, as well as seeking feedback on public engagement strategies. And this chart here just shows you how good we did. So here on the left, you have what I just detailed in terms of the recommendations. And on the right, this is how we met those recommendations. So for the environmental justice areas, like I mentioned before, we have the non-discrimination and equity plan update, as well as a Flip Junior Ambassadors program. For short videos, we did sponsor some videos from 83 Degrees, and they were able to have some instructional content that educated folks on transportation development and planning, and then the 1 Minute Matters video series. Those are shorts, and those also focus on transportation-oriented development. To be more flexible, we killed it with that virtual engagement. I mean, we really made sure that we were in front of the people, and we had these processes in place to make sure that their voices were heard, even though they weren't physically with us. And again, we're now operating in a hybrid environment, as you see here, and getting more feedback. Again, the Transportation Improvement Program, the amendment pilot. So for our amendments for our Transportation Improvement Program, what we did is we started ramping up how we engage with the public in terms of making them aware. So before we used to have an announcement in our newsletter and we put something on the website. Now we actually have strategic posts that go directly to those folks who live in the areas that are directly impacted by whichever that amendment project might be. And we also have the same thing we had before, the newsletters and press releases and a dedicated webpage and road signs. So we have gotten more feedback on our amendments because of those efforts. So for this report's recommendations, here they are. Let's increase our social media presence to increase our engagement. So there you have it, TikTok. A lot of young folks use it, they like it. Why not get in front of them and make sure that they are also aware of the wonderful work that we're doing and how they can be a part of it. And then here's an example from one of the posts that went out for a TIP amendment. And we actually, again, ran that as a pilot. So now we're going to make it formal. It'll be a part of our public participation plan. And that way we can have this effort ongoing when it comes to making folks aware of these amendments to the TIP. And here is an example of just a shot of what we could have if we were to put out more information on social media and just have a bit more, ramp up the video shorts that we're doing, where we can clarify our role, the TPO's role and responsibilities in the transportation planning process. So it could be infographics or short video clips that basically say, hey, did you know? And we had so much success. I said it before, and I got to say it again, with our non-discrimination plan update. And so part of that was using focus groups and really hearing people one-on-one or in small group settings, you know, in terms of what they thought. And you can really glean from that, you know, answers that are kind of not in the box if you have a survey. So we would like to use focus groups more across the board, where it's not just with, you know, these big projects, but also with all of our studies. And then finally, build a culture of awareness. So I look at this picture and I like to see or think that there's me on the left side. I'm like, hey, and I'm high-fiving you. And the person that we don't see is somebody from the public. And they're the ones that they're like, okay, they may not always agree with what we say. They may not always want to participate or have the time, but they trust what we're saying because we are always reaching out to them and giving them a voice. And to do that, we have to make sure that we build up a culture where people are in the know. So we're on the right track, but we're going to do more of that in the upcoming 2 years. And that is it. Here, that's your presentation. So I thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, just go and let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Davida.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for her? And yes, unfortunately, at this time, we're not able to do a motion. Do an online way.
Thanks, Davida, for all your work.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I loved your energy and I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and it's very exciting to see, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you very much, Davida.
You're welcome.
Okay, up next, we're going to go on to some status reports. The first one is the City of Tampa moves and Vision Zero Action Plan. Alan will be the one.
That's her dad.
Please.
I'm gonna do it for
Oh,
Kelly Farron.
great.
Oh, thanks. So Kelly Farron with City of Tampa, and I'm Tampa's Vision Zero
engineer. Alana Brazier is our Vision Zero coordinator, so we work very closely together, and I'm excited to give you guys this presentation and tell you more about Tampa Moves and our Vision Zero action plan. So next slide. So the city's commitment to Vision Zero really began as part of Mayor Jane Castor's Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow. As part of that, one of the recommendations was to adopt a citywide policy for Vision Zero and really to enhance our neighborhood engagement. So that's really what kicked us off and really started us on this path. Next slide. So what is Tampa Moves? It's our citywide mobility plan. We're planning for the next 30 years of transportation infrastructure. And as part of that, we've started with listening first sessions, going out to the community, asking for input on their goals, asking for input on projects that they want to see. And this is going to guide us and our investments for the next 30 years. Next slide. So as part of that, we really outlined what are our guiding principles, and that's where the moves come from. We're really proud of this acronym, but really it's mobility, opportunity, connecting people and jobs, being visionary, thinking more outside the box, what can we do, having that equity lens on all of our projects and our investments, and always safety. That's a huge, huge one. Next slide. That's okay. So one of the things we first started in Tampa Moves was looking at our sidewalk prioritization. Right now we're building only about 1 mile of sidewalk every year with our current budget and our maintenance needs. And so we looked at where have we been building sidewalks, where do we need to build sidewalks, and what are really our priorities. So looking at it through the lens of moves, we've created this map, and it's probably a little hard to see, but in red, that's the highest priority needs. And in blue, those were the lower priorities. And what we could see was Sulphur Springs is that area in red that just lit up. It's where we haven't put as much investment in our sidewalks and where there's a clear need. And so using this data-driven approach has been really beneficial for us and for guiding that piece on are we aligning our values with our sidewalk investment. Next slide. One of the questions we get a lot is, what is the difference between Tampa Moves and your Vision Zero action plan? These are kind of phrases that we use a little interchangeably, but our Vision Zero really rests under the objective of safety. So Tampa Moves guides kind of our framework for all of our projects and our planning, and that safety piece is where we've incorporated Vision Zero. So for those of you that don't know what Vision Zero is, on average, in the city of Tampa, we have 44 people that die on our roads and almost 300 people that are severely injured. Last year, the number was 80 people, and that is definitely not trending in the direction that we want to go. We take this very seriously. You know, our goal is to get those numbers down to 0. Next slide. So as a transportation engineer, one of the things that I really like is just the acknowledgement in Vision Zero that we need to design our roadways to be forgiving. We are expecting people to use our roadways to act like a person is perfect 100% of the time is really not reality, and that's not a design that we should be moving forward. We should have more redundancy in our designs, and we should have them so that they're more forgiving for the human element that we all know is in place. Next slide. So how are we going to get there? Alana created this really great graphic on 12 steps to our recovery. And as you can see, we're halfway down, but it definitely gets more challenging as we keep moving along the road. We've joined the Vision Zero network. Alana Brazier is our Vision Zero coordinator. And we recently, 2 months ago, had a Vision Zero pledge where Mayor Jane Castor, FDOT, Hillsborough County, all signed kind of our pledge to really honor this and put it into practice in all aspects of what we do. Next slide. So we just released our Vision Zero action plan, and the action plan is really data driven. You know, as you saw before with the sidewalks, we're looking at, you know, what data do we have available and what metrics can we put in place so that we're tracking them and we're being accountable to how we're planning, building, and just identifying projects and our policies as well. Next slide. Last year, Alana kicked off a total of 9 meetings as part of the task force. And it's really broken down into kind of the policy piece and working through what are our current policies and what updates do we need to make to be more of a Vision Zero city. We also have more of a data-driven team for crash analysis and countermeasures. We work with Hillsborough County, we work with the TPO, and really looking at that data and engineering piece. And then finally, we also have an equity and engagement committee. So really engaging the public. Vision Zero is something that we want the community to take and own as well. We don't want it just to be something that we're talking about and no one has any idea what it is. So that's a big goal of ours, is to really get that as part of the public's knowledge. So one of the ways that we get there is by focusing on a high injury network. So 24% of the road miles is causing 73% of our fatalities. So it's really obvious that we need to prioritize our investments here. And in this map, we've overlaid the TPO's top 50 high injury network. Some of them line up pretty much exactly, just different years of data. And we've broken it kind of down by jurisdiction so that we understand our partnerships going forward and our responsibilities as well. As part of Vision Zero, how we're going to get there is to be more proactive, to understand that responsibility is shared, and by putting in the safe system elements. This is kind of in line with everything that Federal Highway is now pushing out and discussing, and these are the different kind of categories of how they break it down. So I'll go really briefly through each one, and if you have any questions, please let me know. But it's really important that we are defining our actions and that they're measurable, and we're just evaluating what we're doing so that we can put in better designs, have safer streets, and get those numbers, down to zero. So one example for safer streets is doing some more quick build projects. That's going to be a big focus of the city in years to come. And part of moves will be identifying some quick build projects, some recommendations that we can do quickly, and also taking a further look at our code, our policies, and looking more at how can we create some neighborhood greenways. That goes into our next one for safer speeds. Yeah, sorry, I think 2. Yeah, speed is the number one piece that we really want to focus on, because speed kills. I mean, if you're hit by a car at 40 miles per hour, that's a completely different statistic. 1 out of 10 survivors compared to if you're hit by a car at 20 miles per hour. And so speed management is just really, really crucial to understanding how we can design better projects and that we can have safer streets that people are comfortable on. They want to walk, they want to bike. And we're going to be looking at a neighborhood traffic management program as part of that, and partnering with TPD to put our resources where we're showing time and time again that we have the high speeds and we have problems. Next slide. And then we want to empower the community to spread Vision Zero. We're committed to having more open streets events. This year we did one on 14th Street, which is on our high injury network, and it was really awesome. We had the community come out. They planned a lot of the events. We had some food trucks, some music, and it was a really great event, but also a way to show people what the street could look like when there's no cars on it, and to ask, like, what are some treatments that we could do? Maybe that's a bike lane or some on-street parking, and really get feedback where it matters and where the community lives. We're also partnering with the TPO to do a school safety study. So we just kicked that off, and we're really excited to kind of see the recommendations and piece of that as well. For the safer vehicles piece, one of the things we're looking at is using the city fleet as kind of mobile billboards, putting Vision Zero on it. And also looking at our signal upgrades and partnering that with transit. So can we get some transit signal priority at certain locations and strengthen our first mile, last mile connections to HART and to the buses. The last piece of the safe systems approach is also just coordinating with first responders. We're working on a public-facing crash dashboard so that just data is more available and in people's hands, so they can kind of understand our progress, also understand where we are showing our high injury network, and just be more transparent both ways. So our implementation success, part of that's going to be in moves is developing our metrics to measure like how we're reaching this goal and getting feedback from our task force, from the community, and really having this as our guide for our next 30 years and making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to that guide as well. Next slide. So we recently did 4 walking audits this week, which we're really excited about, and we're going to be kicking off some corridor charrettes. We have more information on our website. It's tpamoves.org, and there's a QR code on the next slide. But these are the 4 corridors that we're going to do 2-day community charrettes: Main Street, Havana, Twigs, and McDill, and get some feedback on what can we do for some quick build projects and put Vision Zero in action. So thank you guys for your time, and happy to answer any questions you get on them.
Thank you, Kelly. Any comments or questions for Kelly? If not, we can move on to the next item. The intro to new TPO studies.
Gina, will you be presenting or should I present?
We have the slides open if you want to. Let's give it a shot and see if I can run it from here. From here being, I think the committee might appreciate this. But I'm in New York City right now because I want to do the 5-borough bike ride this Sunday. It's a bucket list, and so I'm here in New York and signed on to work remotely today. So Wade, since you have it open, I'm fine with you doing it. And everyone can see that, correct? Do you want to just run the slides, Wade?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. Well, this won't take but a few minutes, honestly. This presentation is just to give you a quick overview of the 6 projects that the TPO staff have kicked off this year, but we'll be coming back to you, the project managers will, with different results as things move forward. But this is just kind of the beginning of each of these. So we are looking at the health impacts of the long-range transportation plan, complete streets. And we know that health is, a planning focus area, and we want to improve the outcomes. And we, you can go to the next slide, Wade. We were only able to do like a cursory look at the health impacts when we developed the 2045 LRTP. And in safety for the LRTP, one of our performance measures called for 350 miles of complete streets. So we thought, well, let's try to understand, if we were to build those, how would it impact health? How would it reduce the risk of, asthma or, chronic heart disease? Next slide. So this project has 2 tasks, basically. There's going to be a baseline for the county determined, and there's a tool that the consultant has to determine the health risks for all census tracts. For high blood pressure, and like I said, diabetes and heart disease. And then the second part will then be looking at those complete streets. We're going to pick 5 of them and assess, what the benefits would be if we were able to build those. So the next slide. The study is expected to maybe come back before the committees, I think in September. And the last slide shows the project manager for the TPO. If you have more questions, you can contact Joshua. The second of our 6 new studies is freight supply chain resilience. You can go to the next one. First, what are our critical supply chains in Hillsborough County? And we want to see where those, where they're vulnerable and if they can be strengthened, especially if we are going to be faced with a disaster. So next slide. 5 commodities will be analyzed. So that means well, it could be water supply or pharmaceutical or medical or energy, and see how they function now in normal conditions, and then the different scenarios for disaster type scenarios, just make recommendations on how we could mitigate those supply chains if they're to keep things functioning in our county. So next slide. That study will wrap up at the end of the summer. I think it's coming or set to come back before committees in August. And if you have more questions, next slide, you can ask Allison Ye. She's our project manager for that study. The third study is data sharing platform enhancements. And this, we're working together with Hillsborough County. Johnny, you can go to the next slide. We'd like to have crash and travel time forecasting included in our data platform. And we'll be able to make better, data-driven decisions when we prioritize projects in the LRTP and anytime. So next slide. the team working on this will update a previous model that we already had been using, but it just, will update and be able to calculate performance measures for like road reliability or time for your travel trips and safety. And then there's an option that they might look at the performance of like how it affects where new developments come into play and how our forecasting of safety and reliability are impacted by new development. So that's actually going to be a pretty big, more in-depth presentation at the ITS committee. You can go to the next slide in July 14th, but we'll probably have that also come before other committees too. It's a little more technical, but feel free to contact Johnny Wong with the TPO or Sarah Caper. There are the two partners for the project managers. Then I think Kelly just mentioned this, the Tampa School Transportation Safety Study. Next slide. We're working with the city on this. The study is kind of an extension of the TPO's 2018 school safety study, where 12 schools were identified based on crash analysis and several other variables. Well, this study will kind of update that methodology and consider different weightings that maybe are more important now than they were, back when we first did that study in 2018, and come up with a list of schools. Go ahead, Wade, you can go to the next one. Oh, I think go to the next slide if you want. So identify specific projects that can be built, like physically. But what I kind of like about this one too is there's also an element of encouragement and education, like identifying schools where we can, that would really benefit from a better organization between their parents and the kids and the faculty to get kids to walk or to bike from the neighborhoods.
Gina, what are sidewalk stompers?
Oh, that's a great question. Sidewalk stompers they're a grassroots group of moms. It was probably maybe 3 of them had started this back in the school for several years ago around their school. They were just concerned because they lived close enough to be able to walk to school, but it just didn't feel very good. So they started forming like walking school buses or bike trains that would go to the school. And they was coming up with handouts and getting kids excited about walking and biking to school. And it was so effective that they've actually joined, I think they're members of the Livable Roads. They come to the state community traffic safety team and kind of grown into wanting to do what they did at their school to schools around the community. It's really nice. So they're involved in this, they're a stakeholder, and they're going to help out quite a bit with the study and outreach. So this one is, I think this one, goes to the end of the year, but there's a big push in August because, so right now there's a survey going on. Most of these projects are either in the data collection stage or, which includes some of them surveys to get input from parents and from principals for this study. But Lisa Silva is the project manager, and you can, reach her. I'm sure she'd be happy to share more info. The last 2 studies are yours truly, Wade Reynolds. He's the project manager for these. Plant City. Okay, so the canal connector was identified as one of the projects in a previous Plant City walk bike plan. This canal connector trail. So there's limited trail systems in that area, in this area of Plant City, and there's just a lot of places that people may like to bike and walk to and have trails to connect them. So next slide. At first, I guess it'll be like a high look at locations, maybe where there's some barriers, and then identify up to 3 alternatives of routes and take a little more in-depth look at those. Are there railroad situations, or is there a highway there, or water bodies, but really work to identify an alignment and any other needs for that trail. And that study will completed probably by the end of September, I think, is what we have it on track for, and there'll be some outreach this summer. And as I said, Wade is the project manager for that one. And the last study is the county, and we're working with the county on this one, and the TPO are looking at a bicycle network evaluation. Next slide. So it's been a while since we've actually really looked at the entire county and assessed and figured out, we looked again at the prioritization methodology and programming, where facilities are really needed and what types are needed in different places. So Wade, next slide. Besides doing an existing inventory and kind of reviewing lots of plans and studies, because there's lots of things going on in this area, maybe prioritizing by a number of factors and scoring them, and hopefully have a ranked list and a map that shows where bike facilities are needed the most, and maybe from the surveys going on, like, you know, kind of assessing maybe what type of, is it, you know, protected bike lane, is it best here to have some other type of facility, a off-road trail. Anyway, so this, the 4 segments will have deeper dives into those to really actually come up with some conceptual design and develop, you know, other opportunities to really move this forward depending on the, you know, the county's budget. So that should be finished in September. There'll be opportunities to submit comments, and Wade or Abigail with the county are the project managers for that. And if you have questions on that one, Wade can definitely answer. So that's what we're working on. You'll hear more about those as the projects move forward, but we're very busy if you weren't sure, and we're happy to, you know, keep you guys informed.
There are canals in Plant City? I didn't even realize it.
Yes, there is. Well, I mean, it's a small canal. It's a drainage canal.
Okay.
So I'll send pictures of the bike ride if only if I finish it. And I think Jonathan Forbes, do you guys know if Jonathan Forbes is here in the city? He was going to try to do the bike ride in 2020 when I was actually really trying to get here to do it. Does anyone know? Is he's still on the committee, right, Wade?
He's supposed to be there this weekend.
Great.
In a week, but he was 2 weeks ago. He was saying he hadn't gotten his bib yet, but everybody else he was going with had gotten theirs.
Oh, it's okay. He'll get it. I got mine right before I came. I'm going to send him an email. It'd be fun to meet up with him. Thank you.
How long is your bike ride?
40 miles, right?
40 miles. I don't ride like that. I ride to work. So
It's 40 miles. I've done it. It's not 40 miles like put your head down and ride. It's not. There's going to be a lot of walking.
It's around New York?
Around New York.
Manhattan?
It starts
all
in the
boroughs, every borough.
The top, and then it goes around and around.
Every borough.
Every borough, yeah. You're gonna do some walking on the FDR, guaranteed.
I'm gonna walk a lot.
Yeah. Come around a corner, you're gonna see 1.5 miles of people walking their bikes, and you say, crap. Or you'll say, good, we get to walk. You know, one or the other. Just have fun. Smile. It's also what it's about.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions or comments online.
All right, thank you, Gina. I think that's it for us. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Enjoy your bike ride.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Okay, so the next item is the 2045 Tampa Comprehensive Plan Vision Survey. Katrina Corcoran, the Planning Commission staff.
Good evening, everybody. Katrina Corcoran, Planning Commission staff. For those of you who are in the room, you'll notice we have a nice flyer here for the Grow Thrive Tampa Comprehensive Plan. For those of you who are online, you'll note that Wade has our webpage up here where you can click to take this survey. So just a quick little bit of background. The Planning Commission is coordinating with the City Planning Department at Tampa to update the comprehensive plan. This is a multi-phase, multi-year plan update that will lead to in-depth revisions to the comprehensive plan. And that will be through the 2045 horizon year. So this vision will guide how we build the places in which we live, work, and play. And this begins with you. So we're trying to get as much outreach as possible, have folks take this survey. There is a link to take it in Spanish as well. And we're using this to refine what the public has expressed in previous plans and studies to reflect on what is most important to be prioritized and addressed in this plan update. So you'll be asked to provide feedback on general themes related to transportation, housing, parks, water, and other major aspects of society that will be impacted over the next few decades. So please take a few minutes, take this survey along with the other lovely survey that was given to us tonight. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And feel free to share it amongst your networks, anybody that would be interested in taking the survey that either lives, works, or plays in Tampa. That's it for me.
What's the time frame?
For the survey, it ends at the end of May. So you have till the end of May. It should be pretty painless. I haven't taken it myself yet. I found out that staff can take it, so I will be taking it as well. So.
Thank you, Katrina. Okay, so seeing no comments or anything like that online. Okay. We go ahead and move on to this last item here, old business and new business. It's a memo on government in the sunshine.
Yes, and I just want to mention that this is in your packets. But Florida's government in the sunshine, it basically is between two members or alternates of the same committee. And on a topic, that's the first part of it, and on a topic that may come to that committee for action. So it's not as if two members of this committee can't talk to each other outside of the meeting. They just can't talk about an item that is likely to come before them for action. So there is a long description of that here, which I could read, although I'm not sure that it's worth going through the entire thing. But I think our adopted bylaws are the important part here. Members shall refrain from participating in any private communications regarding TPO business involving two or more members. And further, any written material received by a member in connection with TPO business shall be given to the executive director or the members committee support staff. So if something is emailed to you that you think is relevant to that, you would email it to me for record keeping or distribution to the full committee. Non-compliance with the bylaws is ground for dismissal, and this ends with Beth saying that she urges all members to take these standards of conduct seriously. So we greatly appreciate the time and expertise that all of our advisory committee members contribute. When you do have information or perspectives to share with other members of your committee, please provide the material. This is bolded. Please provide the material to your committee staff person no later than a week before the meeting. So if I distribute it to the entire committee, it's on the record. We have not been bad, as far as I know, as a committee about replying all to emails and thereby getting in violation of the Sunshine Law. Other committees, not necessarily TPO committees, have not been as good about that. So it's just something to keep in mind with your communications as we continue to do the business of the TPO board. So that's all I have on that. Okay. Unless there are any questions about Sunshine Law, which I am not an expert in.
All right, thanks for the reminder. All right, and then with that, we are going to join the meeting. So, the addendum.
Unless there's any other old and new business.
Can you all hear me? It's Jason Jackman, USF.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make the announcement that it's National Bike Month in May, and Bike to Work Week, the week of the 16th, and then Bike to Work Day is May 20th. There's also Bike to School Day on May 4th. So a bunch of biking events going on around the state and city.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Old business, new business? All right, hearing none, we can join the meeting. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone online.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming and showing up.